Hi, this is Dan Pinniger with Project Council Media. We're here in Washington, D.C. outside the Georgetown's very first ever Cybersecurity Law Institute that they're putting on. And today with me is, of course, Judge Facciola. Judge, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Judge Facciola is, of course, very well known in the e-discovery world for a lot of things. You're on the advisory board of the Sedona Conference and at the U.S. District Court as a U.S. magistrate judge. You see these issues all the time with search warrants and e-discovery issues coming to your desk. The question is, are law firms and lawyers cognizant of these issues?
It depends on the law firm. Obviously, law firms who have clients that are in this industry or vulnerable to hacks, by necessity, learn this because their clients seek their guidance on these issues. On the other hand, there probably are law firms who do not have clients working in this area. I hate the word space. Working in this area, who may not be aware of all of this except what they read in the newspapers. Well, what they read in the newspapers is terrifying enough. And what has happened now, by virtue of what the American Bar Association did last year, is to raise a new sensitivity to these issues for all lawyers. It now requires lawyers to be aware of the benefits of technology and also of the dangers. The dangers of the technology would be, of course, this new world in which we live in which extraordinarily valuable things take the form of data, as opposed to jewels. These are the crown jewels. We've heard that word throughout the conference. Accordingly, lawyers who are not sensitive to how that can be stolen are on very tricky grounds, because this new comment to the ABA rules specifically requires them to be aware of the dangers of this technology, and hacking is the preeminent danger, one would suppose.
And of course, with the estimated value and losses of intellectual property theft now in the trillions of dollars, companies are adding chief information security officers. They're putting in very robust plans as very large law firms. But the question is, or very large corporations. But the question is, are there law firms doing enough as well to protect that data? Do they have those protections in place? And I can certainly see inside the Beltway, inside of this DC-centric area, the larger law firms are very concerned about security. They have government clients, classified secrets and of that nature. But that's not your typical law firm. Your typical law firms...
Well, yeah, but again, it's hard to imagine a part of our economy that is not affected by this and not sensitive to it. So, inside the Beltway, because of the presence of the government, it's different. But I'm sure there's an equal sensitivity in the Silicon Valley and the Northern District of California and all over the country. I mean, just from the people who have come to this conference, we know this is not an inside the Beltway conference. We're meeting people from all over the country who've come here. Indeed, yesterday, one of the women in the audience introduced herself as a UK lawyer.
UK, right, yeah.
So we're even drawing on that. And I think the next panel will be talking about the international implications. To answer your question, yeah, there are going to be small firms who may not be as sensitive to this as they should be. But we hope, given the wonderful conference we've had here and the reaction to it, that we can get this out and the information will go. I'm smiling. That's the Georgetown's ethical counselor just walked by, my dear friend Mike Frisch. And I'm sure he will tell you the whole idea behind the model rules by the ABA is to get them out to the broadest possible circulation.
Right.
So there is a national standard we hope will emerge.
So one of the scenarios and hypotheticals that we've been talking about here at the conference on the panels has been, what would happen to that associate who goes to Starbucks, who's just trying to get his or her caffeine for the day, and they're working on the brief, they're working on the client's hot document that they finally found after tens of thousands of e-discovery work, and their computer is hacked. Mm-hmm. Does that associate, have to fear for their job? Have they broken any ethical rules? What are they in store for?
Well, to answer your question, I don't know about his job. That's up to his superiors. In terms of his ethical vulnerability, thanks to the comment to the rule, he is not familiar with the dangers of technology, and he hasn't fulfilled the responsibility he has to take reasonable efforts to secure the integrity of the quotes of these confidence and secrets of his clients. So he is in dangerous waters. In terms of how he will be treated, it's a matter of what the bar in that community does. But there are a gradation of punishments. For example, our court has a confidential disciplinary methodology in which lawyers who seem to us to be troubled are referred confidentially to see if they can use some help. Unfortunately, throughout our country, lawyers are not immune from the problems of emotional problems or the problems that result from drug abuse or something like that. So that would be the first stage, informal counseling. The next one, it would be ratcheted up. It would be a public proceeding. And at that point, bar counsel or the Board of Professional Responsibility or whatever it's called has a panoply of remedies to do something about this. If this is his first mistake, if he's led otherwise blamelessly, I would hope he would get away with a very stern.
Let's hope for the associates out there.
Yeah, he would get away with the stern censure, and he would do what he has to be done. His superiors in that law firm, however, don't get a free ride. Have they been faithful to their responsibility to supervise him, which is an obligation
That's a great point.
they have. So I'm not so delighted by his falling on his sword without a partner coming forward and saying either that he was trained not to do that or oops, we never told him about that.
Right.
And if it's oops, we never told them about that, they've got some vulnerabilities as well. And I assume their clients are not going to be delighted by learning about this. So that's a consequence that's going to be theirs to live with.
And of course, the same issue happens when the corporate executives travel to other countries.
Yeah.
They're at the hotels. They're using unsecured wireless networks. They've got to be worried about the same cybersecurity issues.
Yeah, and I think my panel, Dr. Mike made that point, which I did not realize, is that there is, even if you are using a network from the Starbucks on Amtrak, on U.S. Airways, and you are going to your VPN, there still is a moment of vulnerability when you make that connection. I was not aware of that until I heard from Mike, and that's going to quickly adjust how I do things when I travel, and I will forego using those at all. I carry my own hotspot,
right,
which I pay for and keep it in my pocket, and that resolves me. I will never go on Amtrak or US Air because I know of all the vulnerabilities. Remember what else I do? I sign search warrants, all right? So I read applications by agents from the Department of Homeland Security, from the FBI, from other federal agencies who are investigating phishing attacks, cyber theft, and that is a remarkable education. And I just wish I could get on television and read these applications to Americans and say, good Lord, before you give your credit cards to someone number, do you know who in the world they are?
Yeah.
Do you know where it's going? Have you used this site before? What are you doing? And it's an education. I don't know if the younger generation, the kids in middle school and high school, my grandchildren, who are just about to who will enter the business world in a few short years, whether they're sensitive to this. I certainly hope so. In many respects, I'm concerned about that because, as I say, going on Facebook to them is as natural as picking up the phone was to my generation. And when they bounce to other sites from that site,
right,
what kind of security do these other sites have?
Yeah, clearly spoofing and phishing for data all the time, is clearly a constant concern. Obviously for your clerks coming on to the summer term, and for everybody at home. So we appreciate you coming on. So what are the takeaways for the judiciary, after a conference like this?
Well, the judiciary is already sensitive to this because we have a gigantic network. So we've been in the information security business for decades. And the court has an information security officer. The Administrative Office of the United States Courts has people devoted to this. We are very sensitive to that. Remember, people get their hands on secret information that's in a court. Nobody loses money. Somebody gets killed. These are informants, right? And they are going to be killed if it is ever discovered that they've cooperated with the United States. We take security very, very seriously. So in terms of keeping our own house in order, I think we're trying to do what we can. I'm also coming away that we're going to start to see probably pretty soon cases built on breaches. And one of the aspects that the conferences have made, the takeaway is we are not yet quite clear as to how to handle these in the terms of the statutes we are dealing with, which they don't seem to be as sensitive as they should be. So we may fall back to negligent standards. But to answer your question, this is coming right at us. I mean, as electronic discovery came at us, this is a freight train. The only question is how fast it's going to get here. And in terms of one party attempting to impose liability on another because the breach has occurred, I have done several scenarios like this at the RSA conference, and was advised by the people in the room who watched them that they were very close to reality.
Well, certainly this is obviously a concern for informants that were out there who you're having to deal with, and the security of those individuals, of course. And everybody's concerned, of course, about their own data privacy and the privacy that's of their data that's out there, because we're all living in an interconnected world. So, Judge Facciola, thank you very much for coming out and talking with us. Again, Dan Penninger with Project Counsel. In the industry in teaching on e-discovery matters and other areas of information management, information governance. So I wish you the best of luck, and obviously this has turned out very well here.
Thank you very much, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thanks very much. Dan Penninger with Project Counsel Media.